Well, hello track and field athletes. I don't really know what to say with, with the way everything's going on right now. I know that many of you have been doing what you can to get out and practice and train and with the hopes that we get some kind of a season. Today should have been our first meet. Snows 2 days ago and now it's 50 and sunny. What a beautiful day to have a track meet. But having said that, I've been meaning to get this out to you. It's easier to kind of put it into a video than to try to type it out and type it out and type it out on Remind. Anyways, in terms of getting outside to do a time trial, if you are a jumper, high jump, we're kind of stuck without getting the stuff out, but long jump and throws, you have the ability to get out and do a little bit of a trial. So you know, obviously it's easier if you have someone there helping you to make sure you didn't fault or to mark your implement when it hits, but you can go through and do a real live trial, so to speak, with faults and everything else, in addition to just the training you might be doing. For running, you do a time trial, and depending on which event you are going to do a time trial for, some of the timing is very easy. You can do it by yourself, and others would require the use of 1 or 2 other people. And what I'm going to do is explain how to do all of that. What you're going to need is you're going to need to go on to the App Store, and what you're looking for is Stopwatch, one word, camera, one word, Stopwatch Camera. On my iPhone, when I do my search, I end up finding it's the first one. It's got the orange icon, as you can see. And so once you have that downloaded, what that's going to do is that's going to superimpose a stopwatch onto your actual video camera. And so that means you have a non-stop timer going on, and it records the 100th place, which is all we need. And so what that's going to do is give you a timer. Now what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go to the settings feature, and what you need to do is change the location of where the stopwatch is. Having it at the high or lowest point of the screen I find to be a problem, so I change it to the center, vertically speaking, and I put it off to the left or to the right hand side. I think I just end up putting it to the left hand side. It doesn't really matter. But what you need to do is change it so that it's somewhere in the middle, because when you try to go and use this later on, having your timer at the very tip top or at the bottom sometimes causes an issue. Now when it comes to timing in a track and field, and if you've been to a dual meet before, you know this, and even some of your invitationals, is you have to worry about your timers seeing the start and seeing the finish. And so one of the problems is that when you're timing something, we have a starter pistol. The starter pistol makes a loud noise so that the runners know when to go, but it also produces a flash and a puff of smoke so that the timers, which are usually really far away in a sprint race, can see the moment that the race has begun. We can do our physics lesson on light traveling faster than sound, and so we see the puff of smoke, the runners immediately start running, but by the time the sound gets to our timers, if they try to hit the button then, they started their button late. And what happens? You run the 100-meter dash at 9.9. You're like, oh, I ran so fast, and the coach says, yeah, that doesn't count because the volunteer timer that you had didn't know to hit their button at the right time. And so sprinters, all year long, every season, you always struggle with times because sometimes you end up with a timer who doesn't quite know what they're doing. So what do? Rochester Adams, we have a machine where one button starts all of the clocks. So even if we don't do it great, at least everyone has the same timing mechanism, timing them, and then each individual person hits a button when you cross the line. So that's where we have FAT, fully automated timing, FAT timing, FAT timing. And what does that do? That starts a clock perfectly in sync with the pull of the trigger on a starting pistol. So you know it started accurately, and then when you cross the line, there's a video camera, and so you are perfect. It's Olympic quality. And if you time it by hand, a hand time, you have to add over 0.2 of a second to do the conversion. So that kind of tells you. So when you get an FAT time, it seems slower, but it's legit, it's real. So that's something to consider when we're trying to time someone. So if you're trying to get a time trial time for yourself, that's something to consider. What we also have to consider is how the race actually begins. So, or how the race goes about, right? So you have a reaction to a stimulus. So the gun goes off and you have to begin your race. You have the running in between, and then you have the finish at the end. Now, depending on your event, those different aspects have different relevance to your overall time. For example, if I'm doing the 3,200 meter run, 8 laps, it might take me, if I'm a superstar, it's going to take me 9 minutes. If I'm not a superstar, it's going to take longer than that. So how important is my reaction to the gun? How important is my lean at the line? Not very. So the few tenths of a second off I might be isn't really relevant when you look at the overall time. I'm looking at minutes and seconds. Get down to the mile, even into the 800, and you're talking those tenths of a second, unless you're trying to, run a state time at the regional, isn't really going to matter, at least not for us. What we're trying to do, we're trying to get a time to see if we're improving or not. 400 on down, now tenths of a second seem to have a little bit more relevance. And what does that mean? It means that your reaction to the gun, it means your finish, that's going to be much more important than in those distance races. So we have to consider that as well when you're trying to do a time trial. Okay, here we are outside. And this crack in the sidewalk here, this is going to be our finish line. I've got a starter in black down there and a runner in blue. They're going to run this way. I need to make sure that I see my starting line. You can't see the start and the start button on the screen. I'll show you that in a second here. But I need to make sure I see the finish line when the runner crosses. I need to make sure that I see the arm drop or the puff of smoke from the gun or whatever it is. I don't need to see the runner. I don't need to see the starter. All I need to see is the flash. And so what I'm going to do, you can't see the button, but I'm going to hit the start button. So now you can see the timer going. So now all I need to do is film the start and film the finish. All right, Mr. Starter, we are ready. Okay. Hey, nice job. Nice run in there. Is it your turn to run? Yeah, sure, why not? Shoo. All right. Oh, he's not done. Must be a 400 meter runner.
And I see a car.
Oh, and there's cars. Thank you, guys. So now what I do is I go back through my videos and I go frame by frame until I see the moment the starter's hand turns blurry, since I assume you don't have a starting pistol. As soon as his hand turns blurry, I'm not waiting to hear him say go. As soon as I see his hand turn blurry, I know the race has begun. So right here, 12.65 seconds is when the race begins. Now all I need to do is see the finish. I don't care what happens in the middle. When I see the finish, it says 16.56. So now all I have to do is the math. 16.56 minus that original time will give me the time it took me to run that race. In this case, 16.56 minus 12.65 means 3.91 seconds. This race took 3.91 seconds from start to finish. So now that you know how to use the stopwatch camera, how could you go about using it? Personally, if I was an 800 meter runner or longer, I'm just timing with my wristwatch. I'm going to hit start when I take off, and when I finish, I'm just going to time it that way. If I'm in the 400 and less, I can use this. 400 is easy. You set the camera up, you aim it at the start line, and then when you take off, you can see the time at which you started, you can see the time at which you finished. You just have to make sure you can take a video that's long enough. You're not going to be timing your reaction to a gun, But if you simply do the same method for timing every time throughout this season, you know that you are timing yourself consistently, you can see the progress. If you are doing a 200 or a 100, you're gonna need some help. You're gonna need at least one person to take care of the camera, because you can't have the camera just trained at the finish line, because it has to literally see the starting line. So someone has to be at the starting line. No, someone has to be at the finish line, looking at the start way far away, looking for that hand to drop. Someone says go as their hand drops. The go gets the runner started, the hand drop gets the timer started, and then all the timer has to do is simply film the finish line. If you want them to film your whole race so you can see your form, just make sure they see you at the finish line. You go frame by frame and get your times. So if you have 3 total people, a racer, a starter, and a timer, that would be the best. If it's just 2 people, you can do it. What you're gonna do is you are going to have your timer be at the finish line. They're gonna aim at the starting line, and the sprinter is just going to start whenever they're ready. You are, again, are not reacting to a gun, so it's not going to be an accurate race time, but if you time yourself the same way every time, you'll see progress in terms of your time, because you'll be able to get an accurate value for your time. So you can always do it with just 1 extra person as your timer, but 3 people would be best. If you have only yourself, just you and your stopwatch, there is a possibility. What you have to do is you have to be able to back up far enough with your camera so that you can see the start and the finish in one single screen. Do we have the ability to do that at our track? I don't know. You just have to try it. It would be easiest done with a 200, because if I back up enough right in front of the starting line or the finish line, if I back up far enough, I might be able to see across and see the start of the 200. So for a 200, that's definitely possible. If you go up in those bleachers, our home bleachers, as much as you can, if you look across the backstretch, the start of the 300 all the way to the start of the 200, that's a 100 meter distance. So you can run your 100 meter on the backstretch from line to line. Again, I don't know if you can get your camera far enough away from the start and finish line to see them both, but if you can do it all by yourself. You won't be starting on a gun start, but again, you can at least see what your time is on your own start. And that's better than nothing. You can time hurdles, you can time anything. If you're a 300 hurdler, you can do this all by yourself. All you have to do is set up the watch, because the watch can see the starting line and the 300 starting line and the finish. They're like right aligned with each other, so that's actually really easy. So 300, 400, and anything above that, simple. It's the 1 and the 2. You gotta be creative. You have to have helpers, or you gotta be creative. So give it a try. If you need help, send me a message, and I'll talk you through it as best I can. Sorry it took so long, but it's nice and sunny out there. So if you want to get out and do a time trial today, great. My suggestion, when you're doing a time trial, pick a nice day. You get to choose when your meet is. You get to choose in your races. Do a nice day, and you might as well do at least 2. Do a 100 and a 200. Do a 200 and a 400. Do a mile and then drop down and do an 800, whatever. Give yourself a really good warm-up. Give yourself tons of time in between your races so you're fresh, and then make sure you do a cool down so that your legs don't get all tight. And doing a time trial from time to time is a good way to break things up and see your progress. So good luck out there, and I hope to see you all in a coaching capacity in person real soon, but we'll see. So anyways, get out there, keep training, and we'll cross our fingers that we get something. So we'll just say that Clarkston's lucky they didn't have to deal with us today. So take care.